Welcome back to another project. In this project, I'm going to create a currency converter. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have two selectors that is help us to select the currency. For example, the first one is US dollar and the second one is Australian dollar. You can choose between seven currencies like Euro, Canadian dollar, Indian rupee, Japanese yen, and Australian and US dollar. So any change you do, it's going to be a request to an API that is going to give us firstly the rate. For example, $1 is 81 Indian rupee, and based on the input, the amount of the money we put, for example, 3,000 US dollar is equal to 244 almost 1,000 Indian rupee. So by changing each of them, you see the instant change and instant request to the API, and this is going to fill the output and also the exchange rate. So we're going to use JavaScript to firstly fetch the data from the API and show it and fill these inputs by changing their properties. So see you in the next section. So see you in the next section for the HTML part of the project. All right, let's start the project. As you can see, I have put the final version here as a reference. As you can see, we have a title here, currency converter. We have two select. We can select the currency, the first currency, for example, US dollar. The second one you can use, for example, Japanese yen. And you see the conversion rate and also the rate. And you can also change it here as well. And you can put any number you like here. So first thing first, we need to create the HTML part of the project. So let me open the Visual Studio Code, but you can use any text editor you like. So let me open a new window. So I close this one. Okay, now we're just starting from scratch. So let's close the Get Started tab. And in the File menu, we click on Open Folder. I would like to create the project as usual in my desktop. And so I choose the desktop, and here I create a folder, and I name the folder the name of our project, which is the currency converter. So after writing down the name, we press enter, and we choose the folder here by clicking on the select folder. This is going to open the folder in our Explorer section, and here we can create the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript file. So let me close the Get Started tab again. And here on the left side in the Explorer section, we can click here to create a new file. And we call the file index.html. All right, so now we have our HTML file on the right side, but it is completely empty. But we can use an exclamation mark to add an HTML boilerplate. So we add an exclamation mark here, and we get an auto suggestion from Emmet. If we choose the first one, this is going to give us an HTML boilerplate, which includes the doc type, which is the type of the HTML and the version of the HTML. And in our case, as we are using HTML5, we just need to have HTML here. Then we have the HTML tag, which is covering both of the head and the body tag. Here, the lang attribute defines the language of the page, and in our case, the language is English. Then we have the head tag, which covers the metadata tags and also the title tag. The first metadata defines the chart set characteristics, and we used UTF-8, which is suggested by the HTML5 because it contains all the characters and symbols. The next one is related to the Internet Explorer. For the user who are using the Internet Explorer, they're going to use the recent rendering engine, the Microsoft Edge, instead of Internet Explorer if they're using Internet Explorer. The next metadata tag is for the viewport height. So it's going to set the width of the screen to the device's width. For example, if you have a smaller screen like a mobile, you can see the size of the website smaller when you're using, for example, bigger screen like desktop or tablets. So this is going to automatically detect the device and set the width to that device. And here we have the initial scale, which is the initial zoom level of the browser, and we set it to be 100%. Then we have the title, which is now document. If you open the browser now, we can see our website. I'm using the live server extension. So if you click here on the go live, this is going to open the website inside the browser. My default browser is Chrome, so it's automatically opened. So the website is completely empty, but we have a title document here. So now let me bring this one on the left side and the website on the right side, so we can see everything in real time, the changes. So let's close the Explorer section by dragging it to the left side. And the title is document. Let's change it to the name of our project, which is currency converter. All right. Now the title is changed to currency converter. Now we can start making our HTML file and codes inside the body section. As you can see from the final version, we have a container here that includes everything inside. And we have a currency that is a H1 tag. Then we have a container here. So let me draw it for you. Okay. So we have a container here, which includes a selector and also an input here. And also we have another container here. So we can just make the first one, and by just copying the first one, we can achieve the second one because they are completely similar. And finally, we have just a paragraph at the end here. Okay, let's start creating this. So inside the body section, as I mentioned, we have a container here. So we add a div to the class of container. So we just say container, and we add a dot here to add the class automatically. So now if we press enter, we get a div with a class of container. So later we can install this one using CSS by targeting this class. So inside this container, we have everything else. For example, we have the H1 tag. So let me show you in our website that we are currently working on. Now we have the H1 tag. The H1 tag is just saying currency converter, the name of the website. I can copy this one and put it here. So we see an H1 tag saying currency converter, and we're going to style it later using CSS, but we're just making the HTML part of the project. So after the H1 tag, as I mentioned before, we have a div, we have a container that includes a selector and an input. So after that, we add a div with a class of, for example, we just say currency or currency container. And inside this, we have some selector. So we add a select tag. All right. So we added select tag. The select tag doesn't have a name, but for just knowing which select we are choosing, we add an ID here. So later we can use JavaScript to target this and get the information from this select. So we just add a ID, and then we just say currency, because it's the first currency here, we just call it currency dash first. All right. So the select, look, as you can see, we have the select, but the select doesn't have anything inside it. So we need to add the options here. So we add the option. The first option, the value is, for example, we just say Australian dollar. And inside that one, we say Australian dollar. So now we have one option. All right. So we can just copy this one and add another currencies as well. So I want to add totally 7 currencies, and later you can add as much as you want. So let's copy this option using Alt Shift arrow down 6 more times because I want to add 7. So the second one, I can use the Ctrl D to select both of the second, and I change it to Canadian dollar, for example. So now we have the option of Canadian dollar. The third one is euro, and make sure to write it down exactly like that, the symbol of the currency, because when we are fetching the data from the API only understands this format, not other things. So if you write it down lowercase or you just write down Australian dollar, doesn't work. So you have to do it exactly like this. The next one, I just choose the Great Britain pound. The next one, I just use the most popular one, for example, the Indian rupee, and Japan's yen, and finally US dollar. Oh, I didn't change the other one. Okay. So now we have the selector with the 7 currencies. The last thing is this input. We want to add the input inside this div. So we add an input with the type of number. We just add input, and the type for this one would be number. So the input is the type of number because we just want to accept number for here. It doesn't have a name, but the ID, we just call it worth first, means the value first. And we just set the initial value for that one to be 1. So it's going to be 1 by default when the person comes to the website. And for the minimum amount, I just want it to be 0 because we don't have a negative currency. Maybe we have in accounting, but in general, we don't have negative currency. So here, now we have finished this container for the currency container. We can copy this one and make the second one easily. So we just use Alt Shift arrow down to copy it. We just need to change a little bit. For example, this ID is currency first. This one would be currency second. And the options are similar. Here, the input, the ID is worth second. Okay. And yeah, everything else is okay. But here in the second one, because as you can see, we can only change this first input. The second one we cannot change. So we make the second one disabled. So you cannot change the second one. And also, we don't need to have a value or mean or something like that because this is just disabled. You don't need to do anything else. Okay. And for the currency, I wanted the US dollar to be as a default. Always. When you refresh the page now, Australian dollar is the default. But if you just use the selected attribute, we can just make the US dollar as a default. And this second one, we can just make the Indian rupee default as well. Okay. So now we have finished, one part left, this paragraph. So we just add another paragraph at the end. Just this div. After this div, we add a paragraph, and this paragraph has it has a class of exchange rate, and also it has an ID of exchange rate. And inside, we just can hard code this one for now, and after styling, and we can just make this one dynamic using JavaScript. So for now, we just hard coded something. All right. So everything else you see from final version is coming from API. So this is all just the real data. All right. So that was it for the HTML part of the project. In the next section, we're going to install this using CSS. So see you in the next section. All right. In the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to install the project using CSS. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have a container here that is covering everything. The background color of the website is yellow, but the background color of the container is kind of green. And everything is centered, like this paragraph and the H1 tag here. And also these containers, this selector is on the left, and also the input is on the right. The first thing we need to do is to just create the CSS file. So we need to open the Explorer section. We just can use Ctrl-Shift-E to open the Explorer section. And here we create a new file and we call it style, lowercase style.css. So now we have the style.css file here on the right side. But before using the CSS file, we need to add a link to the HTML file to the CSS file. So here, we just close this Explorer section and at the top, after the title, we add a link tag. And the link tag, we choose the link CSS. And here, we add a link to the CSS file with the relationship between the HTML and the CSS using the style sheet. The reason we just write down for the destination style.css because these two files are located at the same directory. So now we can use the CSS file in our project. So the first things we want to style is this body section because it's covering everything. So all the website is body. We just want to change the background color and bring everything to the center. So let's put our website and we go to style as CSS and we start with the body section. We add a set of curly braces. The first things I want to do, I want to change the background color to be yellow. We should see it now. Let me refresh. Yeah. So the background color is yellow. So in order to bring them to the center, two things we need to do. First is changing the display to flags. So they're going to be this container is going to be flex in the screen, so we can change its position. So we change the display from block to flex, and we have to set a height for it. Oh, sorry. So the height is going to be 100% of the viewport height. It means the height is the height of the screen. And we can now bring this container to the center horizontally and vertically using justify content center for horizontally and align item center for vertically. The other things I want to do is just change the font family, the font of the text to Carrier New. So this is kind of this font. And yeah, that was it for the body section. We also can remove the margin as well, the default margin and padding. So we have a better sliding later. So as you can see, the unnecessary scroll is gone too. So after the body, now we need to install this container. So in index.html, we add a div with a class of container that is covering everything. And now we want to install this div, which is here. And we want to change its background color. And also we want to bring everything to the center as well. So here, after the body section, we target that container div. Because it's a class, we need to add a dot to target that. So we just say dot container. And we open a set of curly braces. So container, it's correct. And now we just change the background color first. The background color we want to choose is dark cyan. It's kind of green color. Then I want to change the text color to be white and text color. So we just need to add color here. And the color I want to use is Alice blue. It's kind of white, but not completely white. After that, let's add some padding. So we add some space between the text and the container. So the padding I want to add is 20 pixels, or I'll just make it 10 pixels. That's enough. That's fine. And the other things I want to do is change this border. I want to have a corner, rounded corner here. So I change the border radius to, for example, 5 pixels. So that is okay now, but in the largest screen, we have like this. And then when we want to style it after that, so if we style other things, we need to add more styling to the container. But for now, we just leave it like that. I'm going to add more later. So now we're going to target this currency container. We have two currency containers, one here and one here. So we want to target both of them. So I copy currency container and just paste it here. And I'm going to add some styling here. The first things I want to add is the padding of 20 pixels. So we add some space here. Then the other things I want to do is change the display to flags. And I want to add the space between the selector and this input. So I can just do it by just adding the justify content, a space between. So we add a space between them. So like this. So everything looks okay. And we can, now we need to style just this selector and this input. All right, so let's target this select. So as you can see from the index.html, the select is under this currency container. So we can target that select by just targeting that currency container, and we add a space here, and then we just say select. Because it's just a tag, we don't need to add dot here. And we added a set of curly braces. Now we can target the select. So the only things I want to do is just add a padding of 10 pixels. So we make it a little bit bigger, so it's easier to read. All right. So after the select, let's target this input. So we can do the same type of things. We just add the currency container and add a space, and then we just say input, because it's just a child of this div. So we have this div, and then we have this select, and then we have this input. So input is under this div. So we just need to add it like this. So we target that. I want to remove the border. So just set the border to be 0. Then let's change the background color, or we can just say background, to be transparent. So no color for the input. So because we can just see the number here, then we can increase the size. We just say font size 25 pixels. So make it bigger like this. Then we can just text align. I want to bring this number to the right side. So we can just change the text align to right instead of left. So we can see the number on the right side. The other things we need to do is change the color. We just change the color to the same color as this H1 tag, which is Alice Blue. All right. So that was it for the input section. And which now, as I mentioned before, we want to add something to the container later. So now we can notice that this H1 came to the left side, and also this paragraph. We want them to be exactly in the center. So the only things we need to add to this container is just add a text align, and we set it to be, instead of left, to be center. Okay, now both of them are in the center. And the last things we need to style is this paragraph. So we can target that. As you can see here, we have the paragraph, and the class is exchange rate. So we can copy this. We add a dot here, paste it here, and we can target and style it just now. So we just say font size, and the font size for this one is 16 pixels to make it bigger. And also we want to add some, we just add some font weight to be 600. So make it a little bit thicker. Let's see how it looks. So it looks nice in all sizes. So let's, the other things maybe you notice, when we change the number, you see a line around this input. We can simply remove that one by just saying, we just target that select and its focus. And also, so we just, when we focus on this one, we don't want to see something around it. And also for the input, when we focus on it, we don't want to see anything as well. Focus means when we click on it, or when we use tab and we go to this part, we call it focus. So if you want to target the focus, you need to add a colon here. Now we can just remove the outline. We're just saying outline 0, or I think you can say outline none. So now we don't see anything around the input. Okay. So everything is good for the styling. So that was it for the CSS part of the project. In the next section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part of the project, and we're going to learn how to work with the currency converter API and get all these informations that we need, and based on the selection, and we show it here inside this and also inside the output. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to start adding functionality to the project using JavaScript. So we have created this UI using HTML and CSS, but just like the final version, we want to add a functionality. So when we change a currency, or we change this input, we see the instant result in the output. So each time we change something in these 3 inputs, we are going to fetch the data from the API, which gives us the information about the currency converter. So let's first create the JavaScript file. So here we need to open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here on the left side, we create a new file, and we call it, or we name it, index.js. Similar to the one we did for the style.css, we need to add a link to the JavaScript file within the HTML file. So let's close the Explorer section again using Ctrl B. And we need to add the link at the end of the body tag, because all the pages, all the tags should be loaded, and then the JavaScript do the calculation. Otherwise, the JavaScript cannot understand the page. So on the contrary to the CSS that is loaded at the beginning, we need to put the JavaScript at the end of the code. So here at the end, we add a script tag with the src, which is the source address. And the address is just the name of the file, which is index.js, because both of the HTML and the JavaScript files are located at the same directory. Now we can use the JavaScript in our project. So a few things we need to do. We need to bring these elements. The first, so we need to have this one, these two inputs, and also we want to have a change here as well. So we need to have 5 elements we imported to JavaScript. So we go to JavaScript and we import these 5 elements. So these 5 elements, they have a ID. For example, this paragraph has an ID of exchange rate. This input has the ID of worth second. This selection has the ID of currency second, and the first one, these two are currency first, and also worth first. So we need to target these elements by targeting their IDs. So we can use the get element by ID method to get these elements. So the first element, we just create a constant. We call the first element, for example, currency first, and we just add EL at the end, so it stands for element. And this is we can get that one by targeting the document. Document is all the website, and we can just use get element by ID to target that element, which is this one, and the ID for that one is currency dash first. Okay, now we have that element. Let's get this input. So the input is just, we call it worth first EL. Similar to the first one, we just need to target the document. We use get element by ID method, and we add the ID name, which is the worth dash first. Okay, so we can copy these two and create the second one, get the second one. So I copy both of them using Alt Shift arrow down, and I just want to change the text first here. So I choose the first, and then I use Ctrl D to choose the other first, and then I make this one second. The only things I need to change is this S should be lowercase, and this one as well. So we got these 4 elements. The last things we need is this element, which is this paragraph with the ID of exchange rate. So I can copy the exchange rate, and here I'm going to create a constant, and I call it exchange, lowercase, exchange rate element, and this is going to be document dot get element by ID, and the ID is the one that we have copied, exchange rate. All right, so we have all the 5 elements now. We can use them, and we can manipulate them, or we can get the data from them. So we want to get the data from these 2 selects and also this input. So we want to get the element value of these 3, and we want to change the value of these 2. So, and then we want to add a event listener to these 3. So we want to listen to these 3. The mean of the lesson is whatever change happens here, we want to know and trigger a function and get the information from API. So 1, 2, 3 places, if any numbers change or any selection change, we want to trigger a function. So first thing first, we create a function here. So we create a function and we call it, for example, update, for example, rate, update rate. And we want to, for example, this element, which is currency first element. So currency first element, we want to add event listener to it. And the event we want to listen we want to listen to the changes happening here. So we want any change happen to this option, this select, we want to trigger that function here, update rate. So we're going to write down the update rate here. So anytime any change happen to this element, we want to call this function. So we can test this one. For example, I can console log and say called. Okay, and if you open the console log using F12, let me bring this one at the bottom. So the console log is open now. If I change this element, for example, I change from euro to Japan yen, we should see something in the console log. Let me refresh the page and we try again. So let's try this one. Currency first element, currency first element, currency first. Let's check here. We see that is it correct or okay, currency first. So that is correct. And also we added an add event listener to it, which is going to be triggered by change. And this is going to call the function that we have created here, update rate. So let me try again. So it's not working for some reason. Let me check. This one is correct, the script tag, index.js. So let me stop the video and find the problem. I'll be back when I found it. Sorry, just I find out the mistake. We were working on the final version, not the website that we have created. So that was the funny things I was doing. Sorry about that. So now we open in the correct tab. So if we now change here from US dollar, for example, to euro, we see that we see the called, this console log. So it's just working, this add event listener. So we can just add the event listener to this one and this input as well. So we can just let me change it. For example, I just do currency second element dot add event listener, and this is going to be triggered when we change it, and we're just going to call the update rate function. Okay, now if we change the second input, we also going to console log called. And let's add the event listener to this input as well. So we target that one by just saying word first element, and we add an event listener. And this one we want to target the number. We can use change or we can use input. We just say input. So whatever change happened in the input, we want to call that function, which is update rate. So now whatever change we do, you see we are calling the input, or we just write something here and we press enter. So 2000, you see it change here. Any change happens, we are calling this console log. All right. So after adding the event listener, now we want to complete this function and we just get the rates. All right. So the things we want to do, we want to use a website, an API. If you search on Google exchange rate dash API, in the search result, you see a website with the URL exchange-api.com. So you can use this website, and this website, it's completely free to use, but you just need to add your email and get the API key. All right. So I already actually signed up for this website and I got my API key. It is completely free. As you can see, no credit card details required for this website. You just need to add your email here and get the API key. So because I already got it, I cannot do it again to show you, but it's completely simple and easy to do it. So when you do this one, you're going to get the API key, and I show you how to use the API key. So now we come back to the website, and let's bring this one to the right side. So instead of console log, so let's close this console log. We're going to fetch from that API. So we just say fetch, and fetch is going to have the address for the API key. So, but because the address is dynamic, because we want to request based on the currency rate, For example, the currency name, US dollar, and this input we want to request, and we get this information based on the second input. Okay, so it's going to be dynamic. For getting a dynamic one, we need to add a backtick here. So backtick is located over the tab key. It's not a quote. It's a different. Okay, so here, and the address for this one is HTTPS. When you actually sign up for the website, they give you the address too, so you can copy that, but I'm going to type it. So it's v6.exchangerate-api.com, and after that we have a /v6, and after that you have your API key that you get from the website. So let me get mine from my email. So I have copied my API key. I'm going to paste it here. So you use your own API key, because I'm going to change this one after the video because it has a limit. So for example, just 1,500 requests a month. After that, you need to pay. So it's better to get your own API key. And after the /, we add latest. And again, you put a /. Now you need to put the first currency value. So you just need to add a $sign because it's a variable you're putting. So in order to get the value of this first element, we can just target the dot value. So we copy this first one and put it here, and we just say dot, and we add value here. So we get the value of that. For example, if it's US dollar, we get the US dollar. If it's Australian dollar, we get Australian dollar. Okay. After this, we're going to, yeah, that's enough for this one, for this. And after the fetching, we need to get the response. So in order to get the response, we can just say .then. So after requesting, after the fetching, give me the response. So the response comes here in the parentheses, and you need to convert the response to the JSON. JSON is a type of format that you can use. Now the response that is giving you cannot use. You have to convert this one to JSON. So for converting that, you just need to write down .json, and you need to call it. JSON is just a JavaScript method. Okay. So after converting it to the JSON, you can get the data. So after this, you just need to have another .then. All right. So another .then, and this is going to give us the data. So now you can use the data here. So we're going to return and use the data. For example, I want to show you. So I just console log data. So show you the data. Let's see, we have done it correctly. Okay. So let's open the console using F12. Now, if we change this one to, for example, the Australian dollar, we get the data. As you can see, the result is successful. And then we get all the information. The information we need is inside the conversion rates. So inside the conversion rates, we have all the conversion rates we need from the Australian dollar. So we requested Australian dollar here. We got all the currency. For example, Canadian dollar is 0.8991. And for example, euro is this much. And this is all real data. It's happening now in the world, the time that I'm recording the video. So all these currency are available for you to get the conversion rate. All right. So let's, instead of console log, let's get the conversion rate here, exchange rate here. So I create a constant, I just call it rate. And this is going to be equal to this data that we are getting. And as I mentioned, it's inside an array called conversion underline rates. Okay. But which conversion rates we want? We want the conversion rate based on the second input. So inside the console log, you saw that they give us all the currency. For example, Canadian dollar, US dollar, and everything. But which one do we want? So we need to specify which one we need. So based on the second input here, this selector, we can choose the one we desired. So the currency second element, we just get the value, .value. So we want this one, this conversion rate. So let me see what's the problem here. Instead of this parenthesis, just change this one to a curly braces. So this should be a curly braces. Okay, now it's correct. Because we are returning directly, we need to have a curly braces. So now, if we console log the rate, we should see the rate here. So now let me open the console log using F12. Now, if I choose, for example, the euro to Indian rupee is 84.77, to US dollar is 1.03. So based on the second one, we are getting this one. All right. So now we can actually fill this one and make this one completed because we have the data and we can just replace this one and show it here. So in order to change that one, it's very simple. We just say this element, which is exchange rate element, we target that one and we just add an inner HTML. We change the inner HTML. We can just change the inner text because we just want to change the text. And this is going to be dynamic too because it depends on the inputs. So we just add a backtick here and we just say 1, for example, the first input. So we add a $sign and curly braces here. And we want to show that 1, for example, US dollar to Indian rupee, for example. So it's going to be dynamic. So this one should be the value of the, this one should be the value of the first select. And so we just say currency first element dot value. And we just add an equal here like this. And we just add the second one by just adding a $sign. We just say currency second element dot value. So let's see if it's working or not. So we choose the Australian dollar. The 1 Australian dollar is equal to Indian. We just missed this rate here. So before this one, we just add this rate as well. So we add so we can put it inside this. So rate plus and a space and then plus this one. Okay, like this. So now we just choose the Canadian dollar. 1 Canadian dollar is 60.63 Indian rupees. So it's working now. All right. But the problem is when the person comes in the website, is just see the hard coded here that we have 1 US dollar equals to this one. So in order to fix that, we can call this function one time at a top. So we just say update rate and we just call it 1 time. So when someone comes to the website, it just sees the default selection, which is US dollar and Indian rupee. Okay. So we have fixed this one. Now we want to calculate the second input, which is here. All right. So after this, we want to change the second one. The second one is worth second element. We want to change its value. So we need to just say dot value. And this one is equal to the first one, the first element dot value multiply to that rate that we have calculated. So the rate multiplied to the first value, this value. For example, 1 multiplied to the 81 is 81. If it's 2, it's 163. 3 is going to be 244. All right. So it's always going to be updated. And this one is 4 digits here. If you don't want to see the 4 digits, for example, you want to see only 3 or 2, you can simply just add the dot fixed, to fixed, which is a JavaScript method to fixed. And then you can just write down the number of digits you want to see. For example, 3, you just see 3 digits, or if you put 2, you see 2 digits. Okay. Yeah, that was it for our project and the JavaScript part. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. So it's finished and I'll see you in the next project.